Yes, sir, we're officially back at it. This is Boog Nice coming at you with the Marvel Legends Rider Series Black Widow and Motorcycle box set review. Let's do it.
This ain't for no scalper. You a scalper? Then fuck out shit. This one's for them real collectors. That's army building and posing figures. Marvel Legends, imports, mini matey, I'm fucking with them. Hype beast, we know about you. Stay buying figs, don't know about it.
And a quick look at the artwork on the side of the box. It is the same on the left and the right flap. And trying to minimize on the glare, but I wanted you guys to see the front of the box so you can see this logo on the front that says Black Widow, because that is relevant to some things I want to talk about. Alright, so I got Black Widow and her motorcycle out of the pack, and I will say off the bat that I do like this set, but I will say that I think I like the Ghost Rider and his bike better. I'm not going to be doing a video review of that particular set, but I did put up some pictures and a written review on my Instagram. So the link for my Instagram is in the description below. If you want to check that out, follow me on Instagram. But as far as this set goes, it definitely has a lot of fun factor, a lot of playability, a lot of options for kit bashing, while the posability may be a bit lacking. Obviously, because this is one of Hasbro's female figures, it still is a set that is pretty interesting. Pretty modern take on Black Widow, on her costume. And in fact, I showed the front of the box because that logo on the front of the box is very similar, if not exactly the same, as the logo on Black Widow's most recent solo series. So she had a launch of Black Widow #1 in 2016 or 2017. I think it was 2016, and it ran through 2017, but it ended, if I'm not mistaken. So you see how that looks. And they pretty much, it looks like Hasbro was trying to mirror that art style and mirror that book. And this motorcycle is directly from the pages of that first issue of the book. So Hasbro's been pretty good with mirroring things from the comic books and giving us pretty accurate depictions of the characters from the comic books and modern stories. So I do really like that. Now, while I do feel like this is a fun set, my issues lie where they normally lie as it relates to Hasbro's female figures and their lack of articulation. But we'll get into that shortly. Just taking a look at the gauntlets here, Black Widow pretty much alternates between the silver or the gold gauntlets. You can see that throughout the years and comic books. My other issue is the lack of accessories. While the bike is the main accessory, you don't really get any guns or anything with her. You get one additional head sculpt aside from this one. And the one that you see here is the weakest of the two, in my opinion. This just does not really look sexy. Doesn't really look like Black Widow to me, although it does sort of resemble the art style of that book, of her solo book. But I think my eyes on this particular version are a little derpy. They're a little off-centered too. I was able to see one other set because when I picked this up, I picked up one from my man Ed, and he opened his set at my job, and I looked at it, and this particular head sculpt on his figure looked a little better. But yeah, I'm not really a fan of this one. It just does not look that good. Black Widow looks like some semi-decent looking soccer mom or something. She doesn't really look like her sexy self from the comic books, in my opinion. Now, this is definitely the more superior head sculpt of the two, with the longer hair. I think the face looks better. I think the paint on mine is a little better. Still not the best, still not the sexy Black Widow that I would have liked to see in this set, but definitely better than the first. Now, that first head with the shorter hair, the mid-length hair, is probably more accurate to how she appeared in that first issue of the comic book. And this hair is probably a more classic or more old school look. But again, this is the better of the two head sculpts. And then just taking a closer look at her deco, pretty much all black with the silver highlights. Like I said, you can see some silver there on the collar and her zipper in between her breast, and the gauntlets here. I see quite a few little paint imperfections here on the gauntlets though. You can see some black smudge there, and I kind of wish these were a little more chrome looking, but you know, they look okay. And I do wish this across her waist, which I assume is supposed to be her belt, was an actual separate sculpted piece. They've done that a lot with figures as of late, so I don't know why they opted on just painting this on here. This should have actually been a belt around her waist, in my opinion. Maybe they thought it would get in the way when you're trying to put her on the bike. I don't know, but I don't really like that. But everything else looks okay. I see a few little paint smudges here. It's not the cleanest paint work on this particular figure, so I don't know if it's just unique to mine. If you're in a store and you're able to pick through a couple of different sets, I say you definitely need to look for the one that looks the best as far as the paint is concerned. Going over her articulation, the head is on a ball joint. Removing the head is no issue, but when you're trying to pop the head back on, the neck peg kind of slips out the way a little bit. It's kind of troublesome, like maybe like the Pizza Spidey head or one of the heads of the smaller teenage Spider-Man. The peg could keep slipping out of the way, so you got to be careful that you don't break the peg. But obviously with the longer hair, she's not going to look up too far. You get more or better range of motion with the shorter hair, but she can look down really far. She'll turn left to right. She'll get good pivot. You know, I saw my man Ed's version. The head was really loose. Mine's a little tighter. So the shoulders are on a ball joint. They're going to come up all the way up. They'll do a full 360. There is no cut at the upper bicep. You get a single jointed elbow, a swivel on the at the elbow. You get a swivel and a hinge on this particular wrist. On the other wrist, the wrist actually goes up and down here, so that's good for if you want to put a gun in her hand or something like that, but unfortunately she doesn't come with any gun. Upper torso articulation looks like that. You'll get it to go down just that far, go that far back, left and right a little bit. Not the greatest. No ab crunch, no articulation at the waist. You know, I always complain about that. I would have liked to see them really step outside the box and try something different, at least with this single packed figure, but no. T-joint at the pelvis, legs going to come up that far. Split looks like that. You do get an upper thigh swivel. You do get a double jointed knee. No rotation or no cut at the shin or the upper boot. You get a hinge and a pivot on the foot, and that's pretty much it. Not enough. It's never enough with the females, Hasbro. And there's a look at that peg. And then there's a look at the articulation with the shorter hair. So it'll go up pretty far. And again, this the way the head sits on the neck is really weird, so it'll move back and forth like that too, as well as the pivot. But yeah, you get a decent range of motion with the mid-length hair. And then just looking at the bike, so like the Ghost Rider bike, the wheels do move. They are rubber wheels, so you can actually get her on the bike and get her rolling along on the bike, so that's really good. It's not the greatest paint details on this bike or the Ghost Rider bike. That's something I talked about when I did my little picture review on Instagram. But the red is pretty vibrant. The distinct parts, the seat actually feels like rubber. The handlebars, the grips kind of feel like rubber. You can see a little speedometer there. But some of my gripes, and one of the things that my man Ed pointed out, is the screws all in here that you can see. It would have been nice if they covered that up in a way, so that way when you're taking pictures and stuff like that, it looks more authentic. But this bike and the Ghost Rider bike could definitely use some paint detail, and maybe just a little bit of dry brushing all throughout here to really bring out the accents with the engine and the motor and all of that stuff and all of those working parts. And that would actually make the bike look much, much better. But it is decent. It's not bad at all. And this was something definitely outside of the box for Hasbro. I like that a lot. I like that they changed this up to look like the headlights and the tail lights there. They got all of that painted. But the paint work is just okay here. Like I said, it can use a little more accent from you. And there is a working kickstand, so you can put that down. That's how the bike was actually sitting upright before, on the kickstand. So that works with no issues. That'll keep her up and hold her weight and everything. And you do actually have a little shock absorption right there with the wheels. That little action is very cool. The bike is decent. It's cool. Now, getting her on the bike and making everything look authentic and actually getting her butt planted on the seat and her feet on the pegs is a bit of a challenge. It was for Ghost Rider as well. So you're definitely going to have to take your time. It takes a bit of skill with posing and everything. I still don't even have it down pat, but it looks decent. And she does look good on the bike. I think the scale and everything works well. and I'm interested to get her into some displays, but I am a little concerned about actually getting her butt planted on the seat. I'll figure it out. I'll get it. I'll definitely have to articulate the legs here at the pelvis and get them up a little bit more to get her on there. But it is cool. It is a cool bike, and it does really work well with this figure, and I'm happy that Hasbro actually did this. So this is actually 2 of 3 riders that I know that they're supposed to put out this year. There may be more, but I know there's one that's kind of like secret right now, if I'm not mistaken. Some are speculating that it might be Wolverine on a bike. Some are even saying that it might be Professor X and his hover chair. That I doubt, but I do believe we're supposed to get one more rider aside from Ghost Rider and Black Widow. Alright, getting into some size comparisons, and I'm going to do some swaps as well. This is a blast from the past. We're looking at the, I think it's the Series 8 Black Widow from Toy Biz on the left, if I'm not mistaken. And then the variant Black Widow, which was the blonde Black Widow, which is Yelena Belova. They did a little better with that particular head sculpt, but the head and neck articulation on these figures are atrocious. The bodies are just atrocious. I mean, look at the proportions. And this is an example of too much articulation. They put articulation in spots on these figures where it was just not necessary. So this new Black Widow, no question, it's an upgrade from these from the past. These are pretty awful, and I only break them out for instances like this. And up next, we're looking at, I believe these were from the return of Marvel Legends from the Hasbro 2-pack. So both of these Black Widows came with a slightly different version of Winter Soldier. And these are definitely an improvement on the Black Widows of the past from Toy Biz. But they still didn't quite nail it here with these bodies. Now, when these drop, they were everything. We loved them when they dropped. But, you know, looking at them now and looking at them in comparison to this Black Widow, definitely Hasbro still has the one up here with this body. Although I do not really particularly care for this head on this new Black Widow. These heads are not much better. Now, the one on the right is probably the better of the two. I think during that time, that was the one that people pretty much favored. And this particular figure holds a dear spot in my heart because this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first time I ever went to San Diego Comic-Con. And during that time, me and my man Solid was shooting a documentary from Morgan Spurlock about Comic-Con. Now, they ended up cutting out all of my parts except for maybe like 3 seconds or 5 seconds in the movie, and Solid maybe had like a good few minutes in the movie. But it was an amazing time. It was an amazing experience. And while we were there, Hasbro let us take this figure, and I think the Warpath figure, the X-Force Warpath figure, they let us have it, let us take them home. So this is, I think this was like Dave Vonner's last year at Hasbro, if I'm not mistaken too. It was just an amazing experience. It was a great collecting experience. But anyway, I'm sidetracking. So yeah, I'm gonna do some swaps with these two real quick too. So there's the short hair version on this body. Now the skin tones don't match up, but if they did, I guess this would kind of look all right. The head is not really sitting on the neck as well as it could. So that's probably, this is a dub really. And the same deal here with this, with the longer hair version. And I don't really like the way this face looks. Again, not really sexy enough. The skin tones don't match up. And the head sits on there funny. While the head does pop, both heads do pop on the peg. Again, they're not sitting as flush as they could. And it just doesn't look good. And it should be noted that the hands pop off on the new Black Widow, and you can remove the gauntlets here. So I'll see if I can swap on these other ones and how that looks. Yeah, that kind of works. This is the silver gauntlet from the Black Widow with the gray outfit. You really got to kind of force the gauntlet there onto the wrist, but you can pop the hand back on, and you can use this one if you want to. And then there's a look at the gold one from the Black Widow with the black suit. And that works, but the gold is not going to match the highlights of the gray or the faux gray belt around her waist. And continuing on with the size comparisons, up next I would have shown the Vintage Wave Black Widow, but I don't have that one. And I know that the head on that Black Widow is the same as Mary Jane, but I couldn't find my Mary Jane figure for some reason. I'm kind of annoyed. But on the left, you have the Avengers movie Black Widow. I believe this was the first one. I did have the second one from that box set too, but I think I ended up selling her. And this is probably the best Black Widow that we've got as far as like the look and the head sculpt and actually being a sexy Black Widow. And on the right, we have the Bucky cap. On the Bucky cap mold, it's the Bucky cap. It's the Bucky cap. You know, I always say Bucky cap mold. I haven't broken out this figure in quite some time, but the two of them were running around together a lot in the comic book some years back, and I think he should probably be a little bit taller, maybe. And then looking at that head on the new body, it doesn't work because the head doesn't pop all the way onto the neck. If it did, the skin tone still wouldn't match up perfectly, but it would look decent if the head could actually pop all the way on the neck. The hair is actually covering up the fact that the neck looks really long. And that Black Widow came with the head sculpt with shorter hair as well. This was probably the better of the two head sculpts, but this one does not pop completely on the neck either, so it just does not look right. But yeah, you can see if it did, then it might. And there's one of the alternate heads from the Dark Phoenix and Cyclops 2-pack. I believe this is one from the pack. I hope I had that bagged up with the figure right. But this looks pretty good. It looks definitely like a more sexy Black Widow, but I don't know that the eye color is right. And there she is, a Winter Soldier. I had a Kit Bash Winter Soldier where I used some of the parts from the movie Winter Soldier. This is like the comic-based one, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta find that. I guess I'll show whatever I couldn't show here on Instagram, so definitely follow me on Instagram. Alright, so I should have had this review out at 12 a.m. Eastern time, but I was exhausted and I went to sleep. I'm kind of glad I slept on this to really kind of take in the figures and what have you. I had been fasting for 3 days prior to, so I was really exhausted and I had to work today. So I'm shooting this after work right now, and I got a chance to mess around with the Ghost Rider a little bit more. And you know, like I said initially, Ghost Rider is definitely the better of the two riders so far. I really don't like this face on Black Widow, but it's so much fun factor with the figure, and for 40 bucks you can't really beat it. I believe $39.99 is going to be the regular retail price. I picked this up at my comic shop at Forbidden Planet, so the prices there were a little bit more. There'll be a little bit more at specialty shops and comic shops, but again, this is still one that I would recommend, but we didn't really get the definitive Black Widow just yet, or at least not the head sculpt that we really deserve. This particular one, I left this one on because, like I said, I think this is the one that matches more closely to the comic art. And yeah, I'm just trying to set up some stuff for main course at the same time that I shoot the end of this video. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.